Key point 1, there we go. I almost forgot to record. That would have been tragic. About 30 seconds. All right, let's move forward. I did have coffee. So, total war. Total war countries are basically fighting the entire war by mobilizing their entire infrastructure. Economic, industrial, everything they got. All the people, everything you can do is total war, right? Managing everything, putting it together, moving forward. So this is in the war. This is also going on at home. So Wilson will establish two, he establishes several, but we're going to talk about two wartime agencies that are going to help this along. The first one is the War Industries Board, right? That's these guys right here that are all looking very serious and very important. This guy looks very upset. I'm not sure why he's so upset. But it's designed to make the American industry that's already established, that's already accomplishing a lot, doing a lot, transition or shift their guidelines, what they're making, and focus on munitions or tools or things needed for the war effort. You see the examples of this at its height during the Second World War, more than you do in the first, but it's around since the first. To give you an example of what I mean, do you guys know what a Rolls Royce is? I'm sure you do. Right? It's like a really fancy car. Well, during World War II, if you didn't know, like you guys know what the Spitfire, the British plane, the one that like is from Dunkirk and stuff. The engine in a Spitfire is a Rolls-Royce made engine. So like the company Rolls-Royce that makes the cars now and that made the cars then made the engine that went in the Spitfire. Mitsubishi, that makes, they make cars now. They made the engine that's in the Japanese Zero. Ford and Detroit, they make the engines that went in M4 Sherman tanks. The companies that are already established, they change their goals, their mindsets, right? And they change them to create things that are needed for the war. That's a total war aspect of this stuff. Another administration that was made was the Food Administration, which ensured that food is properly and effectively being produced, used, and saved. Because if you run out of food, what's going to happen to your war effort? What do you think, chat? What's going to happen if you run out of food while you're fighting a war? What's going to happen to your country, to the effort, to the war? You're going to starve. Are you going to be able to win if you're starving to death? No, you can't win a war if you're starving to death, right? So you got to manage the food. That's why this symbol for America lady, right? You guys recognize a pale lady with blonde curly hair? You know which painting she's from? Yes, no, real quick. You've seen her before, but in a different light. She's not wearing a flag. She's wearing white. Anything? See some no's. Manifest Destiny. Yes, she's the one from Manifest Destiny. Same lady, symbol for America. So what this means for total war, what this total war thing is doing is essentially The United States leveraging all of its assets to fight in a European war. So I'll give you guys about a minute and a half to get this down. I'll make sure the timer's on so that way I hear it go off instead of not listening to it like last time. About 20 seconds. All right, let's move forward. So that's total war. Now, what else happened is during this war effort, Wilson's administration severely limited civil liberties, specifically free and dissenting speech. They silenced it. There were two acts, the Espionage Act and the Sedition Act, that made it a crime to oppose the war, interfere with the draft, or say anything disloyal within the war effort. So you couldn't criticize the war. If you did that, you were in trouble. Is there a problem with these laws and this rule? What do you think? You think there's a problem with this? With telling people they can't talk bad about the war?
Didn't it go against their amendments?
Yeah, it went against what's that document called? That rule book.
The Bill of Rights or the amendments or something like that?
Yeah, the Bill of Rights, which is in the Constitution, right? This is breaking the rule book for America, right? The Constitution's like America's rule book. Hey, government can only do this stuff. This is a straight violation of that. But it gets worse. So quick thing to point out, the case is pronounced Schenck versus the United States. Now, when I was typing out the PowerPoint, I wrote Schenck like beef shank because I was lazy. But then I made sure to correct the spelling. The problem is I forgot to correct it on the other part. So it's spelled Schenck like the way it is in Schenck versus United States. It's pronounced Schenck. So basically what happened with this court case is Schenck is trying to make he made these pamphlets that were designed to help young people resist the draft. But he gets arrested and, the case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court ruled freedom of speech is not absolute. When speech constitutes a clear and present danger, it is constitutional to suppress it. So I'm going to give you a minute and a half to write that down to get in the notes. And then I'm going to give you another minute. And in the chat, I want you to tell me, do you agree with this? Why or why not? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. First minute, notes. Second minute, do you agree with this court case ruling? Why or why not? So I'll let you know when the first minute is up, and you should be telling me whether you agree or not. So minutes is about up. You should already be thinking about, do you agree? Why or why not? So you can send that privately also if possible. First minute is up. So, do you agree with that statement? Why or why not? Does that Supreme Court case ruling sound okay to you? Yes or no? Send it to me privately in the chat. Starting now. Go ahead and start sending them in. There's 21 people in here. I should say 21 responses. We got about a minute left. Time is about to run out. I should start seeing responses. Do you agree with that Supreme Court case ruling? Why or why not? Time is up. Let's go. Nuke that chat box. What should I be seeing? Give you another couple of seconds. Fill it in, and then we're going to move on. So to those of you who did respond, thank you very much. So typically, the rule of thumb, right, is this is still being argued about today. This is still something that people debate about all the time. Who can think of a really recent example of this free speech issue coming up in 2020 politics? Sure. Yep. And there's even another one, even more recent than that. Than the Black Lives Matter. There's another one. Super recent, just happened in November. Or no, in January, I'm sorry. What happened to Trump? You said Trump, yeah, but what happened? Before, no, but he was impeached. This is separately from the impeachment, separately from his rating. So people broke into the White House. He was removed from Twitter. There you go. So Twitter kicked him off, right? Twitter silenced the president of the United States. So aside from, we're going to set aside the issue of, are they a company? Can they do that? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to set that aside. The bottom line is people perceived what he said as a clear and present danger, right? Therefore, he was removed and silenced because it was constitutional to suppress it. Do you see the issue with the term clear and present danger? What's the issue? Is that specific? Is that measurable? Is that something everybody sees it and goes, oh yeah, that makes sense? Or is it up to perception, right? Is it up to somebody's mindset, right? Is it up to somebody's opinion? It's the issue. It's the same from yesterday, right? It's like the Captain America thing, it's people have different mindsets on what they believe and what they think about, right? And so it changes all the time. That's something to keep in mind for this. So this is a major case. You need to remember this. Yeah, it's opened up to one's perception a little too much, you could argue. So key point 2, something that's going to be very oddly familiar in a little bit. The United States is also dealing with a Spanish flu pandemic, as well as growing anti-communist sentiment. That anti-communist sentiment is known as the Red Scare. So I'll give you a quick minute. Should take us a little less than that. And then we will get started. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Spanish flu. Spanish flu is a pandemic, global pandemic. Hey, familiar, right? Going on. Masks are not new. They've been around for a while. Killed thousands of people by the thousands. A global pandemic, deadly flu strain, weird strand. But during the Spanish flu, the government was forbidding publications that published true and accurate information on the deaths. They thought it was going to be bad for morale. Overall, about 600,000 Americans will die during this pandemic. This one being the Spanish flu one, not the one we're currently in. But yeah, so the government was limiting the press based on, morale. Can't publish this. It's bad for morale. Bad press. Luckily, that didn't really stick, but that was a thing for a little while. So I'll give you a quick minute, a little less than a minute, honestly, but just to jot down, government was, that second bullet point. They were forbidding publications from publishing about the Spanish flu pandemic in the name of morale. About 30 more seconds. A couple years. The thing with the Spanish flu that's a little different is that it killed way more people than this did. And it took a while, but eventually I don't have a specific number, so I can't give you like it took 3 years, but a couple years it was like this. But the difference again, like now we got a vaccine, everything should move a little quicker. The one thing the parallel that you can make is that Spanish flu was deadlier. And so you'd get it dead. Like it was also during the Spanish flu pandemic, things didn't close down the way they did here. It was weird. So it's a little different. Like everybody still went to work. Everybody still did their stuff. They just wore masks. Just you could argue maybe that's why people died. It's hard to say. But yeah, it didn't close down in the same way. So like people could still go do stuff, which is why there's an argument about like, hey, you should open up, right? Let people take the risk, roll the dice, what have you. So Red Scare. Red Scare starts in 1919. It does not go away for a long time. After the war, the First World War, there's a growing anti-communist sentiment in the United States. The reason that sentiment is there is because of the Russian Revolution. Americans are starting to fear that communists will infiltrate the United States and overthrow the government and make it evil, evil, evil communist country. You had these things called the Palmer Raids by Mitchell Palmer, who's the Attorney General. He tasked J. Edgar Hoover, FBI guy, to secretly gather information on radicals, anybody he deemed radical. And they ordered the mass arrest of socialists, radicals, labor union leaders, and more, leading to 6,000 Americans being arrested and 500 being deported. The Red Scare is a real thing. We're going to get into it a little bit later on as well. We're going to keep talking about this communism thing. But this is the time period where you get this fear of communism, right? The idea that communism is evil and bad. Those of you that have been in my classroom, you've seen my Scott's paper towel ad that I had that is doctored a little bit. But Scott's paper towels, like companies are saying, like, hey, buy our paper towels. They're not communist, right? Other paper towels are communist. Ours are made with capitalism and freedom and all this nonsense. So people are genuinely afraid of communism. And they're very anti-communist. Everybody's narking on each other. My neighbor Bill, he's new. He just moved here. I think he's a communist. And it would be like, it was a whole ordeal. Like it's very funny. It's very, it's a very specific period. It's very unique. But it'll lead to a lot of this rhetoric that's going to stick around for a while. I'll put it that way. Give you about a minute and a half for the Red Scare. About 45 seconds, and we're moving on. All right, let's move forward. So here's what you guys are doing next. I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes to analyze this picture. What do you see? What's happening? And then I want you to try to tell me why you think it's happening. So I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes to look at it. Then I'm going to give you another minute to get your responses into the chat box. So the first 1.5 minutes, which I shouldn't have started, analyze the image. What's happening and why? That's what you should answer to yourself. And then send it privately in the chat after this time is up. So take a second, and I want you to think about it really good. And I want you to think about why. What's happening? Why is it happening? 1 minute to think, then another minute to write or type. What's happening? Why? That's a good one. Brian, that's a good one. That's a good. Emiliano, another good one. So, about a minute left on the clock now, new minute. Send me your responses. What do you got? Chip, that's good, solid. Good. Overpopulation, that's a good one. Less people getting into the USA, more Europeans want to get here. Yep. Another 30 seconds. Make sure I have your response in here so I can check on it a little bit. Make sure I have your responses in the chat. Limiting transportation, right? Limiting immigration, good stuff. More Europeans want to get in. That's also good. So, something important to point out, and I'm going to start talking now. European immigration to the United States is at its height. It's at its peak. It never gets any better. It never gets any bigger than it did during the Gilded Age. And in response, you're going to get a backlash. People are going to start becoming very anti-immigration and this immigrant movement. What's that type of backlash called? What is that feeling, that sentiment of being like, I hate all these immigrants? What's that sentiment known as? It's got a name. Nativism, solid, yes. So, key point 3. European immigration reaches its peak during the Gilded Age. That spike in immigration will lead to a nativist backlash. And it will also lead to something known as immigration quotas. Immigration quotas are limits. There will be actual limits on the amount of immigrants that can come into the U.S. So I'll give you a minute and a half for that key point, and then we'll move forward. About a minute left on the clock. All right, let's move forward. So immigration quotas. Immigration quotas come and they're a result of a backlash of too much immigration, right? Nativist backlash. First one, emergency quota of 1921. Second one, National Origins Act of 1924. Both of these together will limit and set limits on new immigrants coming into the US, especially those from Eastern Europe because communism, and Asia because racism. So I'll give you a quick minute and a half to get that info down, and then we will move on. Oh, spooky lights. Lights gone. Ooh. My classroom's haunted. There's ghosts in here. About a minute left on the clock. All right, so next question I have for you guys. Really quick answer in the chat. Does this artist like immigrants? Yes or no? Does this artist like immigrants? Yes or no? Need to hear from everybody. The answer is no, right? He does not like immigrants. Good. Find me a reason why. What tells you in this image that he doesn't like immigrants? Give me proof.
It says undesirable.
Undesirable on the briefcase. That's good. What else? Close the gate. Awesome. What else? It says immigration restrictions on the gate. A bomb. What does that mean? Yes, there's a bomb there. The guy is a bomb. What does that mean?
They want to blow his brains out.
No, not quite. Not quite. But what is it? What does the bomb mean? They will ruin us. What is this immigrant if he enters the United States? He's literally
The immigration is a bomb ready to explode.
right. He's a ticking time bomb, right? He's going to destroy America. Exactly. Good job, Alex. Yes, he's a ticking time bomb. Yes, it's a bomb, obviously, right? He's literally like, look, the fuse is lit. If you can see the little, like, not lit, like cool party, lit like it's on fire. Sorry, guys, I'm old. I don't understand lingo. But yeah, it's literally a ticking time bomb. Immigration, no, they want to blow his brains. It's not that they want to kill this guy. It's that this guy will kill America. All right, so keep that in mind. Good job. Good breakdown of these things. Because you see a lot of these, and a lot of these are gimmies on AP stuff, a lot of these sources. So good job. Last key point of the day. We are almost done. This class always seems to go by so much quicker. I don't know why. Anyways, due to quotas on immigration, there was a lack of labor force. Because remember, all those immigrants coming in meant cheap, available labor for all these factory workers. So cities like Chicago that are still industrializing have a lack of labor. So as a result, there will be a mass migration of people from within the country to head towards those cities to find the jobs. So I'll give you a quick minute for that, then I'll ask you another question.
Sir, since there is a lack of immigrants to take the cheaper pay, did the labor unions get what they wanted, which was like higher pay and stuff?
Overall, yes. But so yes, in a short answer, yes. For various reasons, that happens. In part because the lack of free available labor means that employers have less, what would you say, like ways to go around them. So in a lot of ways, yes. Not in every way, but a lot of ways. That's why we had work. We have 8-hour work days now, right? There's no child labor now. So things like that, yes. And in and of itself, yes.
There is child labor. I'm working, sir.
Yeah, but
There's
you're
still
not.
child.
But you're not
I
9 years
am.
old, losing
I'm
your hand in
considered a child. I'm considered a child.
a. That's fair enough. But didn't you choose to work?
No, I'm forced to every day.
I mean,
My parents just don't fork over money, sir.
well, yeah, but you're working because you want extra income.
No, I'm working because I need the money. I had a. It's still recording. Okay, I'll tell you later.
Okay, tell me later.
It can get very
Let me know.
from here.
Okay. So moving forward, migration patterns in the United States. So what's the difference between migration and immigration? Somebody tell me in the chat. What's the difference? Someone migrating, someone immigrating.
Is it migrating when you're already there, you're just moving to a different place? But immigrating is like you're coming from outer parts into another place.
Yeah, you nailed it pretty much. So migrating is like moving cities, right? You're staying in the country. You're within the country, within the United States. Immigrating is when you're coming from another country. So yeah, nailed it. Good job. Yeah, home country, outer country. So the Great Migration, as it was called, where huge portions of Southern African Americans migrate to urban industrial centers in the North. This happens for a lot of reasons, but the main reason is they're trying to escape the oppressive atmosphere within Southern society. Things like segregation, violence, lack of economic opportunities, Jim Crow laws, constant disenfranchisement. In the South, post-Reconstruction, racism is built into the society. It's built into the laws there. So these people are trying to get out from that. They're trying to get away. They're trying to go north. Then they're doing so also just there's jobs there now. They have opportunities that they don't have in the South. Booming industries need labor with the lack of immigrants. So that's where it comes from. So I'll give you a quick 2 minutes for there. There's a lot of info on here. A couple more seconds, and we'll go ahead and move forward. Yeah, coffee is always a great fuel you could use, honestly. I use it. I run on coffee. So, just because racism is not built into the laws in the North does not mean that everything is fine, dandy, and okay. African Americans are still going to face discrimination even after the Great Migration. The difference is, and this is important to note, is that the discrimination is not, the system is not built on discrimination. It's not rigged, even though it's still there, if that makes sense. It's not entrenched in laws in the North the way it is in the South, essentially. And so you'll get a lot of race riots during this era. The largest one of them was the Tulsa race riots / Tulsa massacre, same event, different names. A lot of postmodern historians will refer to it as Tulsa massacre. I tend to agree with them. And it began because a white woman claimed that a black shoe shine assaulted her. A white mob gathers to try to lynch the man, but a group of blacks resisted that group. It led to a lot of fighting and violence and destruction of property, as you can see. By the end of it, about 300 blacks were killed. So that was the Tulsa massacre, race massacre riot. So give you a quick 2 minutes to break that down. You need that example in there as an example of race riots in the North, because racism doesn't go away. Like to kill a mockingbird. That might be where they get the inspiration from. My literature is a little off, but it could very well be to that effect. So I don't want to say it is, right? Because I'm not, my knowledge of literature is not great. I haven't read that book since school. It's been a long time. Yo, same. I do read, but I read a lot of nonfiction. I read a lot of history books. You should read. Reading is good for you. Reading is good for you. You always, everybody's got stuff they like that they could read. Like I read a book, one of my favorite books actually. The entire book's just about the month of August in 1914. It's really awesome. It's called The Guns of August. Good book. I've read like 15 books about the 8th Air Force. I don't know how to read. That's not true. You know how to read. I bet you read really good too. One minute. Well, but the way you get over that is just practice. You got practice. All right, time is up. Let's go ahead and move forward. Hey, look at that. It's exit ticket time. All right, give me 1 second. I'm telling you guys, this class goes by so much quicker for some reason. All right, so exit ticket should be posted. Should be able to see it right here. It's one question. This is it's a free, easy exit ticket, so to speak. Identify and explain how total war impacts the United States, both negatively and positively. Be specific and give examples. 4 to 5 sentences, please. That is it. That is all I got for you guys. So I will be on this call. You should stay on this call to complete your exit ticket as well, and then have a great lunch. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Stop the recording.